YouTube. Just thought I'd talk to you just a little bit about the garden. Lots been happening. Mostly it seems like what's been happening has been raining. But I thought I'd show you where we are right now and what some of the successes so far this year are, and also what some of the failures are this year. Some of the little experiments that I've been running to see how this works this year, and then kind of talking about the garden across the way a little bit. Hadn't walked over there this morning, but things are pretty soggy. So I'll talk to you about that and kind of tell you where things are. But I hope you enjoy this. If you do, go ahead and like the video, and then ask any questions that you want to about what we're doing. We may have some answers. You may have a lot of suggestions, so I appreciate those too. This is a learning experience for all of us, so that's the point. So appreciate it, and y'all take care. First, I thought I'd talk to you about the tomatoes. Tomatoes seem to be doing very well. These are the tomatoes that Fran's taken over the winter in a jar. She just takes a cutting and then takes them, and they've done real well. You can see the little tomatoes on them right now. These are others that we planted. We picked these up at the garden center, and the first were indeterminate, and then these are determinate tomatoes. I think these are celebrities, but they're doing fine. I've got them staked out and everything. Even the ones in the wet area over in the other garden are actually doing okay, so that's pretty good. One thing that we've had is the potatoes have done real well. These were freshly planted this year from seed potatoes that I got from the garden center. Doing great. These are actually russet potatoes, so they're going to do real well. We're looking forward to a crop this year. This is in a 4x12 bed, so that's pretty good size for these. Usually I get about a bucket and a half or so. This is last year's potato harvest. Usually I get about a bucket and a half or so of potatoes out of a anywhere from a 6 to 12 foot bed. This year, for my potatoes that I had over the winter, I harvested some of them, and then replanted half the bed. The bed was a 12-foot bed, so I put some of the ones from the harvested part back into the bed to see how they would do. These are the potatoes that we got from there after we had cooked them, or some of them, not all of them, about double this. But then I wanted to see how it did, so I replanted those to see how what we have, and then I harvested this morning to see what kind of crop we had, because the tops were dying down, and it was just time to see what was there, because I didn't want to have this bed go unused. So as I harvested out, I started getting teeny little pieces of potato, just not much at all. It ended up that this was not worth saving the bed and not planting something else. I could have had my green peas all the way through here, but this is all I got out of a 3x6 bed, which is not enough to warrant letting it sit there for another 2 months without planting something else in it. So this was a failure, doing the potatoes this way. The other way is great. This is Chinese cabbage. I started these from seed in a little flat, and now they're out. I covered them with a lattice so that the sun wouldn't scald them. They're doing okay, so we'll see how this comes out. It's a little bit late for these. These are supposed to be cooler seasons, so we'll see how it goes. This is our English peas, and they're doing fine. I wish that I had doubled the amount of these. In fact, what I'm going to probably do is replant some more of these over in the bigger garden. But they're climbing up the trellises fine, so they should have some peas in not too long. This will probably only give us a couple of meals. I need to do a lot more of these. This is the spinach. We had harvested all of our spinach that we wanted to harvest, and I saved half of the bed for seed. So this is the spinach going to seed, and it's bolted. Now you can't eat it, but this is the seed that's developed. These are the flowers that are to be ready to harvest in probably another week or two. The blueberries are doing real well. One problem that we ran into with the blueberries was that we've had some tremendously high winds, so I've had to stake the blueberries, put a piece of rebar in, and there's just a wire tie around them to stake them and keep them upright. Our soil is so soft that it ends up, the root system of blueberries is not enough to keep them in place, so I've had to definitely do some staking there. I have had cucumbers in the ground for probably about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks now, and this is all I've got so far. Part of that is due to some cooler weather, and part of it may be due to so much rain, but I hope the cucumber is going to start taking off as the weather warms up. After I went ahead and pulled up the potatoes, I wanted to go ahead and get seed in the ground as soon as I could. So within the hour after harvesting, I have now cowpeas in. and the cowpeas should do real well here. In another bed, I planted some butter beans. They call them butter peas, but we call them butter beans. And I planted 4 little rows of butter beans. I planted 3 rows of the cowpeas. And this shows the difference in a 4 foot bed and a 3 foot bed. I can really plant a good bit more in that 4 foot bed, but it is harder to access and harder to reach. But that's been what's happening in the small kitchen garden. But I did want to comment a little bit about the larger garden over at the farm. And we've had so much rain. We've probably had, I was talking with Bill Ardrey, and he's had 8 inches of rain in the past few days down at Heat Springs. And we've had at least 7 up here in my range gauge. So we've had a lot of rain probably in the past week. And that soil, even though the soil's fairly good right now, it just sogged it out. And the corn is up. The corn's only up probably about 3 or 4 inches. The beans have made it, but they're not doing great. Weeds are growing a good bit because I can't really get in there and weed very well. If I do get in there, I'm usually about ankle to mid-calf deep in muck. The surprising thing for over there is the tomatoes are still doing real well, and we'll see how that goes. What I will probably, it's actually raining right now, but what I'll probably do is in the next few days, if we can get some clear days, get back in there with a hoe and weed it out, but then also go ahead and start planting some of the rest of my rows. I haven't replanted corn. My plan was to put the corn in, and then 2 weeks later go ahead and put another batch of corn in, and then 2 weeks later put another batch of corn in. So I've really only have 4 rows of corn, 4 short rows of corn, and I want to plant another 4 short rows probably within the next week. I just hope the weather will allow me to do that. And that's just what we deal with. You know, you've got weather that's working with you. Rain, we definitely need it. But we don't need quite as much as we've had. So this is what we have going on. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what's going on in your gardens. I've been watching some people. Container gardening this year seems to be doing very, very well. Some of the people who've been watching have been sending me some notes about and posting things on Facebook about some of their container gardens, and they really look great. And I think part of the key is due to drainage. My raised beds are doing better than the stuff that's in the ground right now just because of drainage. But it's been real interesting to see. They're ahead of me a good bit too because their soil warmed up faster. So it's interesting to see the difference. Use whatever ways are at your disposal to have your own garden. Try to grow as much as you can on your own. The more you have of your own, its source and what you've done to it and how it's growing. So enjoy being out there. Try to stay dry, and hope you enjoyed this one. Y'all take care. Bye bye.